the Evolution Security Podcast. Well, everybody, welcome back to the Evolution Security Podcast. This is our first episode of 2025. Eric, it has been a little while through the holidays and just being so busy. We have not recorded an episode in a while, so we've got a lot of information pent up, and we just have a lot of stuff we want to chat about, and we are glad that our audience is here to join along. But Eric, I just wanted to welcome you to 2025. We haven't talked a lot either over the holidays, which is surprising.
We hadn't. And, speaking of the episode and not recording, I think we had said we weren't going to, we had said that it was probably going to be every other week, that we would record. I mean, it's just a fact, at least right now. Other times when things aren't so busy with the day job, we'll get back to doing them every week because we love doing it.
Oh yeah.
But the point is it's like, we're going to at least do it every 2 weeks, and then the holidays hit. Next thing we know, it's like 3 weeks. So for audience members out there, forgive us. Just bear with us. We appreciate you sticking around.
But it's like that for all podcasts. Podcasts dry up for at least a couple of weeks, it seems, from all my favorite podcasts.
Unless you have folks that can fill in for you, like Mark Levin and some of our other, the national podcasts. And, Lee Weems, shout out to Lee. He's got some folks that can come in and fill in for him. It's a smart idea. I just don't think we could probably ask some folks to come in every now and then and do a show. I'm sure John Valentine wouldn't mind. Shout out to John. But maybe at some point we need to come up with some folks that can come in and do a show on our Zencastr account or something. Maybe we'll consider that.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Well, Eric, let's talk about maybe some fun stuff. We just had the Christmas season, and everybody usually gets, a handful of new toys. I didn't get a lot of stuff, but, when during Christmas time, we really focus on our boys, but I did get one pretty cool thing I'll mention here. But what do you want to start out with your new toys?
Yeah, sure will, bro. And just for real quick, before we go into the fun stuff, we just want to say that our prayers are out there for the folks that lost their lives and their families. Unfortunately, on New Year's Day, we don't want to delve too deep. I'm sure people are, they see enough of that on the news, but we certainly will be remiss if we didn't say our prayers are for those that lost their lives and also their loved ones that are in pain and mourning. And again, we're going to talk later in the show about a little bit of the serious side of that, about unfortunately the threats of terrorism. But anyway, I hope that didn't mess up the segue there. I just wanted to make sure I brought that up, Aaron.
Thank you, Eric. And you reminded me of a couple of things I wanted to hit before we jumped into, was that I wanted to remind our listeners we are not good about this, but we're glad you listen to us, and we believe that we put out some quality content and some helpful information. So do us a favor, like our show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Share our show with your friends and your family, because we know, again, this is helpful information for all of our families for self-protection. And please go out there and give us a review. That really does help us. Again, we need to remind listeners of this more often than we do.
Well, and Aaron, if I could also mention our YouTube channel, not that, our YouTube channel is a minuscule amount of viewership and downloads, it's not a download, viewership on YouTube. I know we're throttled a little bit from some of our content, but we would very much appreciate folks, even if they don't watch long form interviews, they listen to us. It would help us as well if you would go on and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because boy, we have this little incy wincy audience over there compared to our audio, and we would appreciate that. And frankly, we used to have it's the same as like an RSS feed that fed to Rumble, but I guess Rumble stopped that. So none of our stuff has been going over to Rumble. So I'm just going to have to take the time and upload our stuff to Rumble, because we'll probably get a little bit better viewership over on Rumble. But yeah, subscribe on our YouTube as well. Appreciate it.
Well, and then I do want to mention our sponsor, Tenacor. I wholeheartedly believe, and I know you agree, Eric, for carrying pistols, like let's just say medium-sized pistols, from a Glock 43, your SIG P365, to a Glock 19 appendix carry. I'll tell you what, there is not a better holster than the Velo 5.
Totally agree.
The adjustable nature of it and the brilliant design, how it conforms underneath your belt, behind your belt, is just amazing. And that, of course, is along with the Zero belt. Yep. Now, I saw something pretty cool, Eric. They've got some multicam Zero belt.
I saw a black multicam. It's sold out before I could grab one. I was going to grab one, but...
Well, when they get back in stock, I'll get one too. But go ahead and go out to Tenacor.com. They have amazing gear. They are great friends of ours, and we've been working with them since the beginning of the show and even before. So go and check them out and support them, because they are a legit company.
And Aaron, I'll mention this too, and it's an older video. I think it's like a year old or so, but I had never seen it, and it piqued my interest. It hit my YouTube feed, and it was Jeff Mao. Shout out to Jeff, president of Tenacor, good friend. Dude gets after it as well. And he did a video on appendix carry, what it's about, the safety thereof. And man, he did a brilliant job in, a 10-minute video, 20-minute video talking about, hitting on the folks that say, oh, you'll shoot your junk off and all this stuff. He was very matter of fact in saying that, yes, appendix carry has a smaller margin of error, but he made the point that when you're reholstering with the proper gear, proper reholstering technique, you don't cover yourself. He brought up, I glossed over that you don't cover yourself with the muzzle, and then it's in the holster. He made the point about how common it is for people to cover themselves with the muzzle on strong side.
Oh, yeah.
More so than, and especially depending on the type of the person's build that is. But it made me kind of laugh. It made me think about, how when you're in school, either college or high school, how the teacher would get up there and play a video. It could even be just a short segment of some subject. Then I go up there and push play on the video and walk away, and then come back and discuss it. I was thinking, boy, if you were in a classroom setting and you just wanted to more lazily cover that subject, just push play on Jeff's video and let Jeff
Eric,
explain.
That's a good idea. I might put up a little projector at my next class about drawing from concealment and use Jeff's, what do they call that? Audio visual, where you worked in the audio visual department, and you got to run around from class to class, hauling those VCR stands and TVs,
big tube TVs. Yep.
Man, we got off on some goofy stuff here.
I know, but I'll say this, and we'll move on to our gifts, is remember how you were excited when you walked in the class and you saw that TV and VCR sitting there?
Oh, yeah.
Like, yes.
Gonna be an easier day today.
Well, with
All right,
that,
bro.
Yep.
Hit what Santa gave to you this year.
Well, I got several gifts, Aaron, but I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm just going to talk about two of them that I think were most significant. So, Aaron, you're tracking that Origin came out with a new Axiom Raptor weave, right?
Yeah, you mentioned it, but I guess I didn't realize you got one, man.
Yeah, so this was one of my gifts. Try to do this without, I might pull my mic out just a hair. So what I would say is one of the things that I did not know is this is 100% polyester.
Huh.
Yeah, and I read the tag and I was like, that's interesting. So their flagship weave now is made out of polyester. And what I thought was really cool about this, let's see if I can get this on there, if you can see that.
Roller die.
Roller die. And this little, I'll just show both. This doesn't matter that much on the other one, but they're got a shout out, of course, the logo in there. I like that red. It has the Origin wave there. And this is very fitting right here. Best way I can get this one up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to do this without getting Brody's hair all over it from the floor. Can you see that?
So is that on the arm or in the back?
It's on the back, on the tail of it.
So it's a snake of all the colors of belts. But Eric, isn't that? Now, hold on a second. Isn't that the from the Gadsden flag?
No, Aaron. I can't remember the exact flag's name, but it was a revolutionary flag that had the snake divided into the 13 colonies that said "join or die." So yeah, that's what that's in. So yeah,
that's
man,
a cool motif, man.
Yeah.
Eric, that floors me about it being polyester. I wonder what I mean. They're innovative and they know what they're doing. So I wonder what led them to do that.
Yeah, and let me make sure that I'm not leaving out something.
Eric, bro, that tag in there is 100% polyester.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah, let's see here, Aaron. Let me make sure. Yeah, the body is 100% polyester.
That's wild. Aaron, have you rolled in it yet?
Yes, and man, it is comfortable.
That's what I was wondering. Did it feel hot or anything?
It is lightweight. No, not hot at all. I mean, it's you can't see it here because of the lighting, but I mean, you can see through it, man.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to get one of those.
It's super light, man. I was surprised.
Cool.
Because my other Axiom geese, I've got a white Axiom and a black Axiom, and they're still
toasty.
And I would say, Aaron, maybe it's because I came up back in the day when some of the geese were just so damn thick. My opinion on the Axioms is that they're I call them medium weight.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. But this right here is extremely light.
I think I've just figured out my next geek because I need a black one. And Eric, we do have to say that those original Axioms, the weave on that is the nicest weave you'll find on any freaking gi. It's incredible.
Yeah, and this new weave has got a slight change to it.
Yeah.
So like I said, they call it the Raptor. It's hard for me to describe right, in this setting, but it's a slight change to the actual weave. And, they did some interesting things with the way it has some pliability. I mean, it doesn't stretch per se, but here's the other side of this too, is you see these are the pants. This is the Pro Flex pants. Bro, these are comfortable, man. I was like, man, I don't want them super, super stretchy. Like my newer Origin jeans. And I love, man, those jeans are awesome. The Delta 68s.
I didn't realize you got some of those. Cool.
Yep, sure did. Really, really nice jeans. But I was like, man, I hope they're not super stretchy because we don't want our geese like, elastic pants. But these have just a little bit of stretch, but only, Aaron, in one way, outward, like your thighs and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
You don't want it stretching them like somebody's leg dragging you. You want the pants to be rigid when you're trying to do clearance of grips and whatnot. So yeah. But anyway, that's that on that. It's definitely my current favorite gi.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get one of those, man.
Well, you tell me about one of yours, and I'll close up my last one I was going to discuss.
Well, so I was gonna say this. It's kind of cool, Eric. So, like I said, we really just focus the gift giving on our boys, and sometimes I wonder if we spent too much, but it's funny. So Rebecca is Santa Claus in our home, and I'm sitting there, and Josh opens up this box, and it's new shocks for his Harley. And I kind of looked around. I was like, dude, I had no idea she got that for him. And so he got some new shocks for his Harley, and freaking loves them. He put them on. I think Christmas night he did. And then Graham.
Well, Aaron, let me stop you there a second. What's the difference in those shocks?
Oh, buddy, it's just that the stock shocks on that Speedster are they kind of bottom out. He said, even if you're just sitting on them. And so he got some. He had researched and got some real nice. He said, "Man, it's a different motorcycle."
Cool.
So and then he got a few other things for it, like he just got some different blacked out covers for different components of the engine. But and then Graham got a 3D printer, and I had no idea that was sitting in the back room too. So that. I guess I need to up my game on understand what my wife's doing for Christmas. That may say a little bit too much about me. But so what we all did get is one of those portable AC / heaters for the garage gym.
Oh, nice.
So, bro, I'm about to hook up that thing, at least for the heat right now. I have a place where I'm going to vent the heat from the, heat exhaust from the AC. But man, I mean, we can run that heater all day long until it needs to be hooked up for the AC. But I need to put that together. But yeah, that's going to make working out in the winter so much better. Not grabbing cold barbells.
Yeah, Aaron, I admit, so I've got a kerosene heater that does pretty well. I mean, it gets the garage hot. But man, that kerosene gets expensive. And also, like, I'm surprised. How it gets just as hot here as it does in Oklahoma. As long, because you may have seen the fan that I have in my home gym. It's a pretty sizable. Let's put it this way: what you normally would see as a industrial fan, it's like half the size of one of those. But man, it gets after it. So I really am never uncomfortable in there, even at the hottest part of the summer, because my house, or our house, I should say, has really good insulation. But I would tell you, I wouldn't mind having an air conditioner in there, though.
Bro, they aren't as expensive as you might think they are. Now, we'll see how well it holds up, but I'm pretty excited about that.
I would probably have to, because you also may recall I've got a 3-car garage, but it's got an opening, so I'd probably close off that one side from circulating air in there.
That's a good idea.
Either way, but enough about cool, man. That was, and you guys got some new mats, didn't you? Or am I mistaken?
Not yet. That one of the new things we got was one of those Smarty, jiu-jitsu dummies.
Man, that's nice. And I will tell you, I looked at those when I got my grappling dummy, and at the time I'm just like, man, I'm not going to spend the money, but it's not that much more if you're feeling it yourself. And my current grappling dummy, goodness gracious, my grappling dummy, it's already filled, right? Obviously. I think straight up, I think I'm going to get one of those 2.0 Smarty grappling dummies. I want something better for some of the stuff I work on. I get so much out of that grappling dummy, don't get me wrong. I'm really surprised how much I get out of it.
Cool.
But I would certainly like one of those. So you guys been putting it to use?
Yes. I need to do it some more, but yes, it's pretty amazing. And I'll have to say that was a gift from my coach, Matt Reyna from Training Ground.
Very cool. Very cool. And since you got a heater out in your garage for your progressive barbell training, right?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome, bro. Yeah, we're going to hit on that a little bit too, man. With that said, man, is that all you got? I got one last gift.
You go ahead, man.
So my wife also got me my Rangemaster Master IDC tickets. That was another. Yep. So that's going to be in March 7th through the 9th in Florida. So if any audience members out there are going to be at that IDC, shoot me an email. And I'm looking forward to meeting up anybody that's either a listener or in the Rangemaster family, which of course there will be Rangemaster family folks in that class, of course.
Mm-hmm. I can say I am really stoked and honored that I completed that course here a couple of months ago. Excellent class.
I'm sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I was just saying it's an excellent class.
And you get to give me a few tips here and there too.
Yeah, I'm not going to give anything away I shouldn't, but yeah, I'll at least give you some pointers so you don't get yelled at.
Well, cool, man. I guess that's about it for Christmas gifts, man. You want to move into some more serious subjects?
Sure, let's get with it.
So, Aaron, it's interesting. I save articles all the time. They go into a file that's typically on my iPad. It's just any article. I got a podcast article file that's on my iPad that if I find something interesting, I'll drop it in there. The different blogs I go on to. But man, it's got a bunch of articles that I haven't even touched on this show. But interestingly enough, some time ago, a couple of years ago, I saw some of these articles popping up and I'd saved them. But I want a hat tip out there, a show I don't watch very often. He's got his information's getting better and better, but hat tip to, I guess his show is called Black Scout Survival. Patriotic guy, former Marine. He mentioned these articles on a different subject, an unrelated subject. I'm like, man, I saved those articles some time ago, meant to use them. So shout out to him because I'd honestly forgotten about these articles. But this really revolves around how sometimes leftists, just going to say it, see physical fitness. And, there's a lot of history out there regarding physical fitness and the ebb and flow of how popular fitness is throughout the ages. But it seems like in some of these articles I'm going to hit on, seems like that physical fitness has just become a craze in the last 30, 40 years, you know? Would you agree? Because I know you read these articles.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like the basic premise, but of course that's completely false.
Right, exactly. And it's just unfortunate that some folks on the left, they want to frame things very venomous, and they want to point towards, if they can find one snippet or some historical connection that they can besmirch, you know, whatever the topic, whatever the philosophy is, that they'll do it. So this is an article in Time, and it's titled "The White Supremacist Origin of Exercise and Six Other Surprising Facts About the History of Physical Fitness, or U.S. Physical Fitness." And let me see if I make sure that so this is by Olivia Wayman. And this was back in December 28th of 2022. So yeah, again, it's been a minute. How did U.S. exercise trends go from reinforcing white supremacy to celebrating Richard Simmons? The evolution is explored in a new book by a historian of exercise named Natalie Melman. I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly here. I think it's Petzela. I think the R is silent there. So Petzela, author of the book Fit Nation: The Gains and Pains of America's Exercise Obsession, and it's out, or was out, in January of 2023. Nowadays, at the beginning of every new year, many Americans hit the gym to work off their holiday feasts. This momentum usually starts to fade in mid-January, according to the 2019 analysis of data on fitness tracking apps by Bloomberg. But such New Year's resolutions are pretty new, as is the concept of exercise as a way to improve bodily health. It's a new concept? That's bizarre. Anyway, we'll hit on that here in a second. And she states, it's really not until the 1980s that you start to have a consensus that everybody should be doing some form of exercise. Don't you find that crazy that this is a historian of exercise? And it says that Melman Petzela is a professor at the New School of New York City. So it says that's partly the result of the women's movement of the 1960s and 1970s. So she's espousing it was from the women's movement, not opposed to the women's movement. I think women were treated pretty poorly many years ago, and they should have been treated better, of course, which we think differently about that anyway. But anyway, which fought for Title IX, allowing girls to play school sports. That pushed back on notions that girls and women aren't capable of doing vigorous exercise because they're fragile. But notice the theme. It's got this. It's from the lens of leftist philosophy. Perfect for reading on the treadmill or stationary bike. The below conversation with Melm Petzela, I'm going to mess up her name, forgive me, folks, outlines the earliest ideas on exercise, delves into the history of various popular workouts, and the outsized influence of Richard Simmons. So I'm not going to go too deep into all this, Aaron. I'm going to try to skim over some of this. One of the things I set out to do in this book is to look at the exchange. Excuse me, Aaron, let me backtrack a second. This is the question that I skipped over. Your book, Fit Nation, starts out by talking about how fat was something to aspire to, and then was a sign of wealth and healthiness. How did Americans go from a mentality of fat is good to skinny is better? One of the things I set out to do in this book is to look at the change in how we think about our bodies and what's considered attractive. Until the 1920s or so, to be what would be considered today fat or bigger was actually desirable and actually signified affluence, which is like the polar opposite of today when so much of our obesity epidemic, discourse is connected to social and economic inequality, and to be fat is often to be seen as to be poor. You'll drink there a second. How did that happen? Well, in a moment, when actually there wasn't a lot of access to caloric foods, to be fat showed that you could afford these things that were out of reach of most people, and also you could afford the rest. Could afford to rest, like you weren't out there doing manual labor all day. As the caloric food became more accessible, and as more people were doing sedentary white collar work. Goodness, this article just jumped around on me like they do sometimes. Normally, I like to print my articles, but my printer was jacking up on me, so bear with me, folks. All right, so you weren't doing manual labor all day. As that caloric food became more accessible, and as more people were doing sedentary white-collar work and had access to cars and leisure, somebody who could resist those caloric foods, exercise, and have a thin body was seen as more desirable. Yeah, and this just keeps skipping around on me. And you know what they're trying to do? They want you to click on their stupid clickbait stuff. So this is kind of screwing me up in trying to read this right. Let me see if I can get out of this here, Aaron. So in the 1980s, there's a huge boom in the fitness industry connected to work hard, play hard mentality. I was also really moved speaking to gay men who had lived through HIV/AIDS and talked about how they exercised to display that they had a healthy body at a moment when there was so much homophobia. Some gyms became like community centers, sharing medical information almost like mutual aid societies. Another big turning point is 9/11. You see a boom in the CrossFit mentality of almost like militarized fitness and girding yourself and your body for a fight. Not necessarily, by the way, in the 1950s, 1960 ways of fighting for the U.S. Army, but more like, there the article moved around again. This is aggravating. I apologize, bro, and to the audience out there, because this is an important point. But more like you need to know how to perform functional fitness to protect yourself if things go wrong. At the same time, you see an emphasis on wellness, self-care, and healing, and being meditative in an increasingly traumatic and unpredictable world. So what era of fitness are we in now? Yeah, man, I'm just gonna drop this article, man, because this keeps doing this to me. They're trying to go ahead, Aaron. You had something to say.
One thing, I don't know if it was at the beginning of that article, but one of the stretches that they go into, and again, it's just like, man, why do they sit around and try and find these types of angles to frame particular topics in, which was, she mentioned the origins of fitness being white supremacy in the, I think there were, I don't remember which time period she was talking about, but it was during a time of increased immigration, and that women needed to be more fit so that they continue to have more white babies, I guess, to counteract the immigration.
Oh yeah, I saw, and I'm trying to find, because I think there were some important aspects of that. And Aaron, I still had another article to delve just a little bit in it. It could have been in that article as well. But yeah, that, to your point, it's like, why are they looking for those points? You know, it's just looking for a way to disparage. I mean, regardless of what race, creed, what have you, for a good percentage of people, they want to be fit. you know, and I'll just skip to this right now, which I've got some points to make, and I'll read a quick section of that other article. Is that fitness has been a part of the human condition since antiquity, since the beginning, right? And there's all kinds of history that points towards, of course, the Olympics, in ancient Greece,
Yeah.
games of physical fitness. And of course, a lot of that revolved around military capabilities, the javelin, the hammer throw. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I know a lot of the history of the Olympics. Running was important and it still is a part of being physically fit for battle. But again, and I'll hit on a little bit of that from another paper real quick. But bottom line is that being physically fit is important for the military, and to include militias back in ancient history. That we've hit on this before, is that the militia is not new to the United States. We talk about the militias in ancient Greece. We've talked about that on here before, where the citizens, were citizen hoplites inside the Greek army, and that was where we also talked about, a little side note, is that those citizens were able to be armed with the military arms of the time as well. So, yeah, Aaron, I wish I saw that in there, but you're right. There was the point that, you had to be physically fit to be able to have more white babies, I think was what was mentioned in this article. But it just kept skipping around so much. I'm just wasting time trying to stay on point with that particular article, and hopefully this one doesn't do it as well. But I'm not going to hit on this whole article here. This one was this was MSNBC, so we know where. And this is an opinion piece, by the way, at MSNBC. And see it. Here we go here. So this is titled "Pandemic Fitness Trends Have Gone Extreme," literally. White supremacists' latest scheme to valorize violence and hypermasculinity has gone digital. And this is by Cynthia Miller-Idris, Miller-Idris, MSNBC columnist, and this was March 22nd in 2022. It appears the far right has taken advantage of pandemic at-home fitness trends to expand its decade-plus radicalization of mixed martial arts and combat sports spaces. Earlier this month, researchers reported that a network of online fascist fitness chat groups on the encrypted platform Telegram are recruiting and radicalizing young men with neo-Nazi and white supremacist extreme ideologies. Initially lured, goodness gracious, with health tips and strategies for positive physical changes, new recruits are later invited to choose chat groups where far-right content is shared. Physical fitness has always been central to the far right. In Mein Kampf, Hitler fixated on boxing and jiu-jitsu, believing that they could help him create an army of millions whose aggressive spirit and impeccable trained bodies, combined with fanatical love of the fatherland, would do more for the German nation than any mediocre tactical weapons training. Now, I'll point something else out here. It's also becoming well known that the German army, it was common for a lot of the soldiers, I'm talking about very common within the ranks, to take methamphetamines that were provided by the German government. Were you tracking that?
Mm-hmm. Sure was.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's certainly Hitler and the German military, they were going to do anything to help them, obviously with their military prowess and they're hell bent on taking over the world, because that's the way Hitler saw it. He wanted to take over Europe, right? Not that we're getting into that. But Aaron, what I will say, Aaron, because I think that's enough, giving out the attitude of a lot of, and this was just 2 articles. I mean, I saw a lot of articles about this, and it was also I might add, wasn't it interesting that during the pandemic, those were some of the most, I don't know, draconian, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess it was his mandates against gyms,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I saw all kinds of articles and comments online about people training in their home gyms and doing jujitsu in their home gyms. And the left really doesn't want us to be strong. Would you agree?
Most definitely. I mean, it just has to do with they there is a concern about self-sufficiency, which health and fitness gives you self-sufficiency. Um, it's yes, it's a strange. It's strange for me to witness it that they can take something so positive and look at it through the oppressor victim lens.
Oh yeah.
Physical fitness, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that's
Well,
all I can.
and also a docile society, it's easy to implement control,
Oh yeah,
plain and simple. Well, speaking of antiquity, and I looked at a few different sources, but I found this kind of interesting mainly because of the age of the article, and is actually a college paper. Is probably somebody's dissertation or so it was, I see it here. It was submitted as an honors paper in the Department of Physical Education. So this was titled "The Greek Philosophy of Physical Education in Ancient Athens as Compared with the Philosophy of Physical Education in 20th Century United States, a study of the Greek and modern idea of physical education as a part of education." And this was at the Women's College of the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina, 1949. And I'm trying. Oh, so here's the author, by Ethel Kessler was the woman's name. And again, I'm just really gonna hit on briefly on this, Aaron, just a few paragraphs of this. The purpose of this paper is to study the philosophies of two civilized cultures, ancient Greece and the 20th century United States, with special reference to their philosophies of physical education, and to discover the ways in which they are similar and the points wherein they differ. This study is indicative, of the fact that one learns many truths from the past, and that a background such as the Greek affords one the ability to determine the direction of a pendulum swing, the trends, the principles, the aims, the philosophies, the essentials of any way of life are forthcoming from a consideration of the historical, let's just say, and past. This is a little blurry, Aaron. It's a copied PDF of both ages, from a study of the education of physical education of certain periods within those ages, and from a comparison of the findings to discern the general areas in which they agree and differ. So let's see here. I think some of the most important points to make here, Aaron. Let's see. So, a background of ancient Greece. A comparatively short period of the ancient Greece era characterized the superior culture of the civilization. Prior to this period of significance, there was developed through the centuries a life which had a need for physical education. And yet, strangely enough, after this was fulfilled, a change in the culture took place wherein physical education was neglected, and its decline followed that of the Greek Empire. And I'll stop there. And this is, we talked pre-show on. Unfortunately, we're seeing a trend in the United States. And what she was stating here is basically that after, I guess probably, I'm guessing it was the Peloponnesian Wars, and the wars with Persia, that the need wasn't as necessary, and they got lazy, and again that helped facilitate the fall. It wasn't the only reason, But again, we're in a trend like that ourselves. As we know, we are having trouble meeting recruiting goals in the United States military for several reasons. Some of it's political. Some people don't want to join the current military because of a lot of unfortunately, the wokeness and leftist social experimentations inside the military, which is very true. But the point is that the other part of that is physical fitness. Young people can't meet the physical standards. They're too out of shape, unfortunately. Video games are so popular. Sedentary behavior is becoming more and more popular. And that's even on top of, I think you'll agree, Aaron, there seems to be a uptick in physical fitness, but maybe it's just the fact that it's a certain segment of society. And I think social media drives a lot of that. It
may skew what you are seeing, especially those of us that are kind of in this realm. It probably kind of pops up in our feed a lot and may skew our view.
A study, back to this paper here, a study of the ancient civilizations of China, India, Egypt, Babylonia, Assyria, Carthage, Persia, so on and so forth, that the Greeks were not the first to attempt body perfection, mind discipline, and character building through physical education activities. These first endeavors, however, did not reach the height attained by the Hellenic peoples. So let me see here, and I think I can read this here because I think I got just a few more paragraphs here. I don't want to bore everybody with this. Greek history may divide into two parts to clarify the sequence of events and to relate them to education. The Old Greek education covered the vast period from the indefinite prehistoric era before 1000 BC, known as the Homeric or the Heroic Age, to the end of the Persian Wars in 479 BC. The new education began with the rise of the Athenian supremacy resulting from the Persian Wars and was best typified by the period of the transition, the age of Pericles. This transition from the old to the new education saw the beginning of a new philosophical trend and the formation of new educational practices. From the Macedonian conquest near to the end of the 4th century BC until the Greek way of life was dissolved into the Roman culture. The new education was still in evidence with the University of Athens as the differentiating characteristic. Greek history at the first earliest date is seen only as a dim light through the fog of antiquity. The most accurate information has been obtained through excavations and the study of archaeology. The Greeks were in the latter stages of the Stone Age about 3500 BC and had reached the Bronze Age about 2500 BC. Just skipping around here, Aaron. The second culture was the Achaean, the age described most fully by the poet Homer in the Iliad and the Odyssey. Homer depicts his Greeks as being fair-haired and blue-eyed, a group entirely different from the Macedonians, I can't even read that, Aaron. It's blurry. Was it the Mysians? It's kind of blurry there. I apologize. As a whole, the life was simple and somewhat crude. The education of the Homeric age was primitive and the instruction limited to training by imitation. Learning of a literary nature was non-existent. Stories of national heroes and customs were passed from father to son through the generations by word of mouth. And this is where one of the points I'm making here. The training of this period was from the fundamental necessities of life, food, clothing, and shelter, and survival was dependent on the physical preparedness of the people. The activities of running, wrestling, and swimming, taught the youth by their fathers, served recreational purposes as well as military ones. And the boys spent much time competing in these athletic exercises among themselves. Service to the tribe required high morals, as well as a strong physical constitution. From their mother's instruction, the girls learn to manage the household and to act in accordance with approved standards of behavior. So I'll stop right there, Aaron. Just a little bit of taste of kind of a colorful look that's from, a 1949 article. The point being is that it points to physical education and physical fitness being important in antiquity. So in closing on the physical fitness side, Aaron, physical fitness, obviously, as we were just saying, is important for the whole population for national security reasons. And that kind of segues into, we just had Boone on, or Dave Benton as his name, but DB Boone of the Benghazi attacks. And of course, we also, in a previous episode, had both he and Sarah Adams on. And she was on the Sean Ryan show. We've talked about this a couple of times recently. And I just wanted to bring up, again, in light of this terrorist attack in New Orleans, even though I'm not at all saying that these are connected, I'm just saying that it's important for us for the American people to take this stuff serious and know that Al-Qaeda has big plans, unfortunately. And that's in this book, Al-Qaeda 2.0, the upcoming attack on the United States and Europe unveiled. Now, I'm going to read a few paragraphs.
Bro, who's the author of that? Sorry.
Aaron. So Aaron, it is authored by multiple people.
Okay,
so,
got it.
And Aaron, so it's the Transatlantic Intelligence Consortium.
Okay.
And so what it is, Aaron, of course, Boone and Sarah contributed to the United States intel side of this.
Okay,
and they
cool.
had some folks. And Aaron, I don't have
that's
all
all right.
the people
That's
to
right.
memory. Aaron, here's another author in here. I guess his name's William Archer. So he was a primary author. I apologize, it's not on the front of the book. But yes, Sarah Adams and Boone, they contributed to the U.S. intel side of this book. But it's multiple people, and of course, I believe it's said that they have over 50 human intelligence sources embedded throughout the world in both Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and various terrorist organizations around the world. So, I mean, the difference between signal intelligence, or SIGINT, and other various means of electronic surveillance, it just does not beat human intelligence. People that are embedded. So that's where this information is coming from. And just to make some points on this and this is one of the paragraphs that I highlighted. And again, they're planning this in 2025 is what the intel tells us. It says, we cannot stop this attack. The plan is set in motion. Al-Qaeda, in the past 3 years, trained and executed the first parts of the plot and its fighters. The ones executing the plan are already amongst us. They arrived in the past few years with a large streams of immigrants to Europe and to the United States. The threat we face is more than a matter for governments or security agencies. It is a challenge for every one of us. The ability of Al-Qaeda to execute a plot of this magnitude hinges on our collective complacency and underestimation of their capabilities. And be mindful, this book draws out the reason this was that Al-Qaeda and its subordinates and its the other affiliate terrorist organizations were able to do all of this planning and execute it was our horrible pullout of Afghanistan. I'm not saying we shouldn't have gotten out of Afghanistan. We just shouldn't have gotten out the way that we did. And I'm also a proponent of having maintained a soft presence or special operations presence and a clandestine service presence and maintaining Bagram, frankly. But I can go more into that at a later time. I just don't think that we should have pulled out the way that we did. It was time to start closing stuff down, but we should not have pulled out and left that power vacuum, plain and simple. And this book draws that out, that Al-Qaeda was able to sweep in and right there with the Taliban and start all of this planning. Back to the book. This book is a call to action. It is a reminder that freedom and safety are never guaranteed. They are preserved through vigilance, resilience, and the unyielding commitment to protect one another. With this knowledge, let us not wait for the storm to strike. Instead, let us be the force that rises to defend our community. And basically, it's a call to action to all of us, civilians. Make sure that you're prepared and make sure that you're vigilant. That you're aware of your surroundings. And it's just a good idea, like Boone said on here. Folks should be beefing up their medical training and make sure their med kits are good to go too. And just a quick hit on kind of what is planned, and I'm breezing over this. So October 7th, Aaron, which is drawn out in this, so a lot of people don't understand that October 7th in Israel, that attack in those neighborhoods, right? 1,500 Israelis killed, I believe it was. That folks thought that was based around October 7th of the Yom Kippur War. Well, no, October 7th was when the United States invaded Afghanistan.
Huh.
Right. So that's where that date is significant. So they were sending a message to us that, hey, October 7th, and it's like Sarah Adams talks about the significance of dates is huge to Al-Qaeda especially, but most terrorist organizations, but especially Al-Qaeda. But Aaron, the attack that they have planned is similar to October 7th. And it's just going back to the book, this small paragraph here. Each operative is part of a small, highly autonomous cell consisting of 8 to 12 members without upfront knowledge of the structure. And this is 1,000 operatives that they have sent over here, is what the book says. Actually, going back here, let me make sure that I'm reading this. Now, one of the ways that they got here, Aaron, wasn't necessarily the border. I'm sure that both borders was part of it, but this book points out that the person helping with the documents worked in the Afghanistan Ministry of Interior. So he knew how to build actual physical documents, right? Passports and visas, whatnot. But anyway, their plan is to have 1,000 fighters in the United States and in Europe. And again, back to the 8 to 12 members. So they got 8 to 12 member cells around the United States and around Europe. And the modus operandi of attacks seems that it's supposed to be small arms fire, suicide vest, and probably similar to what we saw this last weekend. So what their plan is to attack certain cities, probably more than likely in the U.S. will be New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, and Washington, D.C., among others. In Europe, the focus will be on Western capitals such as London, Paris, Berlin, Madrid, Amsterdam, and Brussels. The point by reading this again, and I think I might have read some of this on a previous show. If I'm repeating myself, I apologize, but it's worth reminding folks that they have Al Qaeda has big plans over here, and I will also add that in this book it discusses that they want to use a lot of ISIS fighters because they don't mind not taking credit for it. They actually don't want all the heat to come on them because they're afraid of us coming right back in Afghanistan. So again, the reason I bring up the ISIS is, of course, the terrorist in New Orleans was of course he claimed to have joined ISIS. So who knows if that's completely true? But it doesn't matter. He could say, "Hey, I allegiance to ISIS." That's what ISIS wanted too. They just wanted anybody to say, "Hey, we believe in ISIS and their plans of a caliphate and to attack, the unbelievers." And so it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, it's a lone wolf. Well, it's a lone wolf somehow makes it not as bad. Have you noticed that's a mentality?
Yes.
Yeah. No, they want that, But anyway, with that said, Aaron, I think I wanted to hit on that again. It's just we need to be a little more prepared than probably folks think. And do you have anything to add to that, Aaron?
Well, I just would put out the call to the people to get at least some medical supplies. And for your home, what I'm talking about is make sure you have enough of your prescription meds on hand.
Bingo.
And that you have some food, all the essentials, some waterways to clean water, a good water filtration system. I'm not even advocating that right now you go out and make sure you have a year's worth of food and water. What I'm talking about is at least have enough stuff that could sustain you for a few days, a week or so. Because when, like Dave Boone said, it may be neighborhoods like on October 7th in Israel that get attacked. That doesn't mean you're going to need to gird up your family with AR-15s and fight the terrorists in your neighborhood. But what we are talking about is you may be on your own for a couple of days.
Yep.
And things like I never thought about this until I had medications that I really needed. And not being able to get medications is a serious deal.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's one of the main things I want to tell people. Be prepared for that stuff and be prepared to survive in your neighborhood for a few days at least. Because like he said, for some damn reason, the federal government is not taking this seriously, and they do not have plans. So it is going to be up to the individual and then first responders at the local level to start taking care of this stuff, because I don't understand it, but for some reason, the federal government doesn't have a plan to take care of this stuff.
Well, and to your point, in furtherance of your point, is that, this type of attack, let's say they do, attack multiple cities. You think that might have an impact on the movement of supplies and shipment, supply chains. And that is really the concern of situations like that is, during COVID, we had supply chain issues. I think something like this could make that a lot worse. And again, to your point, that's the reason people should have some extra supplies, is that if they're going to deal with some possible supply chain issues, because terrorists, they not only want to impact lives, of course they want to take people's lives and terrorize, but they also want to impact our economy. A big part of 9/11, their plans was that they believed that obviously that it would impact our economy. The Twin Towers, the symbol of our, of our stock market, So yeah, that's the biggest thing to your point, Aaron, is that supply chains could be an issue. So it'd be a good idea to, make sure you got your paper goods, toilet paper, feminine products, um, have extra Clorox wipes. You may
Yeah.
not be able to take a lot of baths and whatnot. Dealing with sanitation's a big deal. Some folks, if it got real tough, folks might be learning how to dig for outhouses. And I'm being serious about that. During hard times, if it got real tough, you will find out very quickly one of the biggest factors is hygiene.
Yeah.
Staying clean, dealing with waste and trash and things like that becomes a big deal during situations like that. Good example is the Great Depression. And you think that sanitation and getting rid of garbage was it was a problem back then as well. So
Yeah. Well, hey, bro, on a light note, ending out of here, buddy, this was a good conversation. I'm sitting here looking at my Boresight Solutions Glock 19 with my Holosun EPS, my favorite optic thus far. You're going to have one of your pistols milled for an EPS, right? Coming up.
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to be sending it off this week.
Sweet. And so you're doing something a little bit different. The EPS is actually basically the Holosun K footprint.
Yep.
And forgive me, I know there's an original that's a specific footprint that was before the 507K, but that's the footprint.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have it milled for a plate system, so you can either use the EPS or the larger RMS footprint, right?
Yeah. So honestly, Aaron, I was thinking about having it milled for the RMR because there's so many.
Pardon me,
Yep,
I'm getting it mixed up.
I figured that's what you meant, Aaron, and that is, to be honest with you, that has been a tough decision because I prefer the direct mill. But if I'm going to mill, one of my main pistols, it does concern me about sticking to a K. I'm sure, I could get a plate. I'm sure. Obviously, I'm sitting there laughing at myself because currently I have that EPS on my 300 Blackout. I'm using a RMR plate attached to, the RMR plate with the K attached to it. So it goes both directions, right? So not in that case, I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying there. But that's precisely what made me think, you know what, I probably will do the mill for an RMR and use a plate with some good screws and mount it that way. Cause I just want to have options is all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then I don't know if you would use it on that, but then there's that larger 507 comp that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And the main thing is this is not going to be your carry gun. It's going to be one of your main training pistols. It already is. It's just not outfitted with an optic yet.
Yeah, correct. And frankly, man, I got some pretty large hands. I know you got some pretty large hands as well. As awesome as the 19 works, the larger grip on the 17, or we can even go with the 19X, what have you. I definitely have a performance increase.
Yeah, shooting
with the larger grip. So yeah, it's time I have an optic on one of my 17s for certain.
Yeah, man, my Gen 5 17. It's actually an MOS, and I've got a 507C on it. That's my main training pistol for sure.
Nice, and it's going to be important for me to have, a couple of pistols with me at the Range Master IDC. So I figured, I'd have that, and I'll take my 19 with me as well. Make sure I got a backup pistol.
Oh yeah, bro. I had two pistols in my bag at all times, in addition to my revolver.
Yeah, I probably won't be going with a backup revolver. I figure if it really comes down to it, I'm sure somebody, if I had to borrow a revolver, I could.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, bro,
cool.
I'm going to go have some dinner with my family.
Yep. Jan and I got to figure out dinner as well. So, well, it's been fun. I some of the topics got a little bit muddled with the way I was having to read the articles, kept flipping around on me.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I was reading that freaking site and it was
like,
doing the same thing to me on my phone.
It's aggravating that, I know what they're trying to do. That's their way of possibly gaining more revenue, but man, that's annoying. It makes me not want to go to sites like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, brother. Have a good evening, man. Love you.
Love you too. Take it easy.
Take care. Bye.